Good evening and welcome to a public hearing at the courthouse for April 23rd, 2019, 5:30 p.m. I'm John Hutchings, Chair of the Board, and to my left is Vice Chair Commissioner Gary Edwards. To my right is Commissioner Ty Menser, and to his right is Clerk of the Board, La Bonita Bomar. To his right, to her right is County Manager Ramiro Chavez, and seated next to Ramiro is our Assistant County Manager, Robin Campbell. And to her right is Elizabeth Pettit, Deputy Prosecuting Attorney. So welcome. This is a public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance regarding regular property taxes to be submitted to qualified electors of the county at a special election. The county is seeking public input on placing a ballot measure in front of the voters to fund a new courthouse and regional administrative building. There's a sign-up sheet in the back and the back of the room that you can add your name to if you wish to testify. And if others come in, I'll solicit the group anyway, see if anybody wants to add their name. You will be given 3 minutes to testify, and I'll be calling out the names of people to come forward. When you hear a name, please come forward to testify, state your name and where you live in the county. And time may not be donated to another person. And as I call your name up, I'll call the second one on standby to come in so we can just keep this flowing, keep it orderly. When it comes to the public comment, I'm asking people, make sure your phones are silenced, please. And this is our time for us to listen to the public. We're not engaging in dialogue, question and answer, debate. It's our time to listen. So don't expect us to engage you. Not being rude, that's just the venue, the way it's set up for. Please on your phone. No comments that are lewd and offensive. Please, no outbursts of any kind, whether you're pro or con. Let's just keep this thing flowing nice and quietly and orderly. And that's it. So, having heard that, I'm now opening the public hearing. And we have a staff presentation, either Ramiro and or Rick Thomas to present first.
Thank you, Commissioners. Let me give you some background related to this public hearing. Back in April 2nd, 2019, the board took an action to set a public hearing on this particular matter for today, April 23rd, 2019. The notice of the public hearing was published on the Olympian on April 3rd, 2019. We also posted hard copies of the public notice hearing on the city halls for Tumwater, Bucota, Teniner, Rainier, Yelm, Lacey, and Olympia on Thursday, April 4th, 2019. We have received a written testimony, a total of 31. You have a copy, it says only 30, but I received an additional comment today. Out of the 31, 8 were in support of this particular action, and 12 were against it. And the 11 was a miscellaneous comment related to, not necessarily to this particular matter, perhaps more related to the site of the proposed building. So, leading to this public hearing, and again, as a matter of background, the existing hilltop site, as we know it, for Thurston County government and the courts includes building 1 through 6, the main campus, and as well as the buildings across the street. The main campus buildings 1 through 3 were constructed in 1978, and we call it the regional complex. And over the last 40 years, the county has purchased building 4 and 6, which are located across the street, as I mentioned before. The existing buildings for county government and the courts at their current state are at the end of the useful life, costing significant taxpayers' dollars to maintain and operate. The current layout and design also makes it difficult for citizens to locate county resources and services in a timely manner. In 2015, also in 2018, the county conducted feasibility studies for the purpose to provide the county with a long-term solution to housing court and other county administrative functions in an efficient and cost-effective manner. The 2018 study at the direction of the county, conducted further analysis on the following 3 sites. One was the 16th Hilltop site, where Thurston County government and the courts are located. The second was at the Plum Street site, which was formerly the original Olympia City Hall, and its current location of the City of Olympia's Creighton Justice Center. And the third site was the Harrison West, which is located, it was currently underdeveloped on the west side of Olympia. The board, on a majority vote, reviewed the 2018 feasibility study and determined that the best possible location to relocate the building in the new courthouse was on the Plum Street site. RCW 8455050 provides for the levy of regular property taxes in the amount exceeding the limitation specified in Chapter 84.5 of the RCW. If such increased levy is authorized by the ballot proposition approved by a majority of the voters at an election held within the taxing district, also we know that as a levy left, so that needs to be approved by the voters. The proposal before you that needs to be in front of the voters may authorize a maximum increase in the county's total levy rate for the maximum rate otherwise allowed by the collection outlined in Chapter 8455 of the RCW. And did not need to exceed 47 cents per 1,000 of the assessed value. The total regular tax rate produced is estimated to be approximately $1.69 per 1,000. That will be adding the 47 cents per 1,000 of the assessed value, and that is at 2019 assessed values. So that's today's valuation. The maximum rate that we have allowed under the law is $1.80 per 1,000. That is a capacity that you have available to you in the county. RCW 8455 was revised back in 2017, and the county has the option to pay the levy left after approval by the voters of 25 years, and that is the context of the levy left. That is the background that I have for you. Do you have any questions related to what I just gave you?
Any questions, Commissioner?
No, we've heard
Any questions?
many times.
Okay.
So Rick Thomas is going to come to the podium and give you a little bit of technical information related to this particular building, proposed building.
Thank you, Rick.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Good evening.
I just want to give a brief update in regards to just the program for this project. Should it go forward, it will be a joint partnership between the county and the city. Both have functions having to do with court and city functions. The total square footage for the project is estimated to be around 360,000 square feet. About 180,000 square feet would be for the court's functions having to do with the county. About 150,000 square feet would be for county administration functions, and the balance of about 40,000 square feet would be for the city functions. The proposition that we have going forward would give us space to meet our 30-year needs without having to do additional expansion within the footprint of the building. However, we do have a plan to be able to expand even after 30 years on the site to make this a very sustainable project, allowing 50 years to potentially even 75 to 100 years of useful government office space on this site. We also are planning to have parking for up to 900 cars on the site. Because of the constraints of the site from just a square footage perspective or acreage perspective, it will likely end up being a combination of a parking structure and basically surface parking. There are, as Romero indicated, we'd be consolidating the services that are in the 6 buildings up on the hilltop from the county perspective and all of the services that are presently provided for the city on that particular site. So that's a basic thumbprint of what the project would be. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Commissioner Menser.
Can you, at our last presentation, there was talking about energy efficiency and how that plays into the cost projection. Can you elaborate on that?
I sure can, thank you. The buildings that we're actually in right now, if we take the 6 buildings plus the city building, they have an EUI, sorry to get real technical here, of about 77, which is quite extensive when it comes to the amount of energy used. We would propose that this building would be closer to an EUI of 35 to 40. And that would be before any potential enhancements that might come about due to maybe solar or ground source heat pump type of systems. The amount of savings that we would project from that would be about $150,000 to $200,000 a year just strictly in energy costs.
Anything further?
Any other
Nothing?
questions? No, sir.
I have a question. Rick, you were talking about our 30-year needs in the building.
Yes.
Differentiate that between the 30-year need and, is it a 50-year, 80-year, 100-year building
Correct.
that we're looking at or proposing?
Well, right now, what we're looking at presently is going from about 220,000 square feet, and this is just for the county, up to about 300 to 320. So that gives you an idea in regards to the amount of expansion that we would presently need. It doesn't mean that on day one when we move in that we would literally occupy every square inch of that. Very likely there will be space available for the county to potentially lease out, and then as services grow in the future, it gives us the ability to then move into those spaces. In regards to let's say the 50-year plus plan, on the site, we would have the ability to literally add on a module or annex the buildings. There's physically enough room to be able to add on. For example, let's say if the courthouse itself is 7 floors high, we could add on a 7-floor module that would just integrate directly into the existing facility that's there. And we have a very similar approach that we can use for the administrative portion of the proposed building complex as well.
Thank you. I don't want people to walk away with or hear this and say, oh, a 30-year need. We're going to spend that kind of money for another 30-year building, which was what this current one is, correct?
That's correct. And I might just make mention that we are at the the end of the useful life of the facilities we're in now. What we're presently occupying, this is a wood frame facility, and quite candidly, it is Class B construction that, its useful life typically is 25 to 30 years. What we would be planning would be Class A space that really is 30 to 50 years. It doesn't mean that there wouldn't be renovation along the way because systems do wear out, but the infrastructure would in place to support a very long-term facility.
So this building currently was a 25 to 30 year, and how old is it today?
It's a little over 40 years.
Okay.
Yes.
Anything? No? No? All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
We're going to move into the testifying piece now. And so again, if you haven't signed up, please sign up on the back. The sheet will be run up to me. I've already got a couple of them. And I'll call you up when you come to the podium. Again, please introduce yourself for the record and about where you live in the county. And then again, you have 3 minutes. Here we go. The first one coming up is Mayor Cheryl Selby from Olympia, followed by Jeff Gadman, our treasurer. Good evening, Mayor.
Good evening, Chair Hutchins and Commissioners Edwards and Menser. I'm Cheryl Selby, the proud mayor of Olympia, and I'd like to thank you for offering me time to address you this evening and express my council's support for taking the current low-functioning and unsafe county courthouse complex and replacing it with a high-functioning, safe, and efficient campus that will not only be a better use of taxpayer dollars, but will better serve the needs of all citizens in Thurston County. I've been part of a stakeholder work group that's met for almost 2 years, so I've been able to do a deep dive with you and staff on the critical needs for not only a safer and more secure courthouse for jurors, judges, staff, court attendees, their support networks, but as well for the entire county administrative offices and their customers. This complex on the hill, as we've just learned, has outlived its useful life, and we've learned it's well before tonight, but we have been reiterating that it's outlived its useful life, and that's been made apparent by the many studies and interviews with employees. It no longer serves either our community or the people who serve the Thurston community. Some people might think a courthouse is just courtrooms, so it's important for our constituents to know you also did expansive outreach to the other departments to project ahead and assess their space needs well into the future. We really are building a vision of a campus that will serve our county for generations. I'm happy to say that when the city approached you with the option to co-locate our municipal courtroom and court administrative offices as part of this visioning process, you added it to the list of locations and studied it with the same intensity as the other options. The Plum Street site, where our currently Creighton Justice Center is located, ended up rising to the top, and I think it will give our taxpayers confidence knowing that having their entire court system in one complex with one secure point of entry, it just makes sense. It makes not only wise financial and environmental sense, but we can all enjoy the efficiency of services in one location. Folks won't have to worry anymore about showing up at the wrong courtroom for a hearing. People will now be able to fight their Olympia speeding ticket and register to vote without moving their car. Oh, and let's talk about transportation access. Locating the complex right off the convergence of I-5 and 101 is brilliant urban planning and will serve to create more dense, walkable neighborhoods around and in the downtown. The opportunities to expand are there as well. So here we are. The site studies have been done. The needs assessment is clear. The financing models have been vetted. So now we're left with the decision of not if, but when to put it to the voters of Thurston County. The decision to put a ballot measure to the voters to tax themselves is not a decision any elected official takes easily. So much time and effort has been spent to make this decision as clear as possible, but the work continues to make it as clear as possible to as many people as possible. This hearing gets you one step closer to helping our constituents understand the who, what, wheres, and whens of this project. Regardless of when you choose to put the financing plan before the voters, I pledge my support to help you inform and educate our community on the financial and environmental cost benefits of, that's worse than what I have.
Keep going, Mary, all right.
And cost benefits of building a new complex over trying to put a Band-Aid on the current structures. Thank you for your time.
Oh, you were so close. And I wasn't just showing deference to the mayor, although I would. If you're mid-sentence, feel free to finish your thought. Just don't go on another 2 or 3 or 4 minutes, please. So Treasurer Jeff Gadman, followed by Larry Watkinson.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for your time. I am County Treasurer Jeff Gadman, also a resident of Lacey, out by the fairgrounds. So I've been a citizen of Thurston County since 1968. That's a long time. And as a citizen, I think it's important that a courthouse serves its constituents. I also think it is important that it serves the elected officials and employees that show up every day to serve constituents. Current building is in a location that's difficult to access if you don't own or have access to a car. The electrical infrastructure up here has become unreliable, most recently with 2 power outages we saw this last fall. And parking is atrocious. One of the biggest deficiencies in this building happened to me here a couple months ago. Sitting in my office, I had a minor water catastrophe. Now, mind you, I'm on the 1st floor, and I'm getting wet in my office. And apparently what happened is a 5-gallon bucket that's meant to catch a water leak up in the rafters on the 2nd floor dropped to the floor above me. And it was comical, but you know, this building is in sad shape and needs a lot of help. As an employee of the county since 1986, I've been here since the building was nearly new. I've watched the deterioration over the years because it was not built to be a long-lasting building. I go back to my bucket story, go back to the story of the days, you know, recent days when the HVAC system can't keep up with the demand because of extreme temperatures or whatever. We need a new facility. As an elected leader, I want to encourage you to act sooner rather than later. Right now, borrowing costs are cheap. If you wait too long, they will go up. And the longer you wait, the more expensive construction will be. Construction never gets cheaper by waiting. Thank you very much.
Thanks, sir. Larry, come on up, Larry, followed by John Pettit.
This is my first time, so it's not your first time.
What you just seen was a lesson and guided for blind individuals, and part what I'll be speaking about tonight on the new courthouse complex. I am Larry Watkinson. I am happily not an elected official. Imagine the crap you guys put up with. Hutch, let me know when my time's up, would you? So I had the distinct honor of being able to serve on the Citizens Input Group while Rick's firm and Ron were doing the research on this. And as I just gave Jeff an exercise in how you provided sighted guide, Rick's firm had very limited knowledge about how do you provide plans and other types of things to blind people. And I'm sure it scared the hell out of them, but that's okay because I'm willing to teach. In the Thurston County Courthouse, we have a real epidemic issue. It's easy to talk about 5-gallon buckets. It's easy to talk about comfort. It's easy to talk about a lot of things. But 1 in 7 of us in this room tonight will need exactly what is bringing me to the table to say we need to do something about this crisis in this building. It is not a fully accessible facility. It is not ADA compliant. And I'm not here representing my government agency, but I do ADA for a living, for a ferry system and for a state structure where we have over 7,000 people. I am knowledgeable about ADA from a professional background, and I'm knowledgeable about ADA from a user's perspective. So I can speak to you very candidly and very truthfully in the sense, and I can also point out to you that if the Department of Justice were to come in here and had to and work with you because of continuous responses of complaints, I can guarantee you the amount of money that we're talking about today in a shorter period of time would have to be addressed to make this place fully accessible, because courts across this country, especially the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, I love them, would come here and say, you fix it and you do it right. Now, there's been some efforts. So I'm not giving our county a hard time for not some efforts, but the pull pressure on the doors, even the ramp coming through the first floor down here, if I had to push Gary in a wheelchair, would be a challenge because it's not fully accessible. And if he was in his wheelchair by himself, if he ever gets old, he'd have a hard time getting in here on his own in a manual wheelchair. When you leave from the bus stop to come in here, transportation, it's an issue. In fact, one of my last visits up here for in the winter when it was raining, I went out here by where you have your employee parking here towards the bus stop, and there was some mud, and I ended up on my keister. Those are the things that brings lawsuits to you. Now, I'm not here to present a lawsuit to you because Jonathan Srosky's not representing me tonight, but the fact is that somebody will. It will happen. It's not a matter of if, but when. So the responsible thing to do is to look at our infrastructure and say, here's what we need to do. Now, there is one caveat to my discussion tonight, and I think Rick and Ron would agree that they learned a lot about how do I go through plans. Well, I go through plans right now. I'm going through a $335 million. Can I finish?
Yes, certainly. Go ahead.
And I'm going through a $35 million remodel on one of our systems right now. And I would just urge you, as you guys go forward, bring some citizens back together with some diversity so that we can represent culture, cultural competency across the different bilingual languages, and the needs of individuals who have disabilities, to have that discussion with you guys so that when we're designing this, that we do everything right from an ADA model standpoint. That way, when you guys do get old, it's ready for you to come back and visit. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry.
Thank you.
Do it right, Jeff. John Pettit, followed by Terry Ballard.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm John Pettit. I live out in East Olympia. Something I haven't heard here tonight. You know, we talk about the grandiose plan of having a wonderful new facility, something that doesn't even have a price tag. But we're going to build it. Who needs a price tag? Well, I don't know if you know this, but everything's got to get paid for. It's really nice to think we just need to do it. We need to do it. It's old. Well, let me help you out with a couple different things. As I went through your draft ordinance, this is not a proposal for a new courthouse. This is strictly a proposal to raise property taxes. And that's what it really is. Let me help read this to you and I'll show you why. It says right here in your draft ordinance says, portion over here, the county may, or upon their completion found to be impractical, the county may apply the levy proceeds or any portion thereof to other county purposes as the Board of County Commissioners in its discretion shall determine. So there is absolutely no requirement for you, once you get this levy lid increase, to actually build anything. I'm having a real problem trying to figure out why you would think that having your regular property tax, general fund property taxes as your source. You must be the one and only people in the world that think that. You use revenue bonds for building facilities. Revenue bonds don't require you to dip into all of the funds that are available for public services. Now, the county does have a history about not wanting to present anything to the voters. If you go to the Thurston County Treasurer's office, you can see a nice list. Nice long list here, $57 million out there on bonds. How many of them were voted on by the people? None. Not one. Apparently, you want the people's vote if they're going to vote for you, but you don't want the people's vote if you're going to make a decision about spending money. Now, I realize I want to hear lots of things about how, we need more money. Maybe if we weren't paying on $57 million worth of debt, we wouldn't have a problem. Just to let you know, in this little document, I have lots of copies if people would like to have them. But you would find out that if you compared us to Clark County, or if you compared us to Kitsap County, you'd find our rates right now for what we pay in the general fund in taxes is about 20–25% higher than theirs. You need to consider the financial aspects and call it what it is, an attempt just to raise our property taxes by 39.5%. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Terry, followed by Glen Morgan.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Terry Ballard. I reside in Tanglewilde, which is unincorporated Thurston County. Own 2 houses there, and I also own rental property in Olympia. I was born here in Washington, so therefore I've been a Washingtonian for about 60 years. I have a military family. I couldn't really reside here, but I decided to retire here and have been here since 2004, retired in 2012. Bear with me. Pending a transportation tax district was started illegally by 3 commissioners who resided in Lacey, Olympia, and Tumwater. Because none resided in Thurston County, unincorporated, Walter Blake had to wait until 2 of the 3 commissioners currently were on board. I really don't know if it exists today, but I do know if it does, it is still illegal and doesn't benefit exclusive unincorporated taxpayers like they try to make us convince us of. Pending was a fee for all of Thurston County residents for a septic fee. Of course, they had a negative response. 2 out of 3 commissioners may have voted it down, but in an elevator outside, going down, Mr. Blake again informed me that the fee that I was currently under was most likely going to continue, and it done so for no reason for the next 10 years. Data has never supported the fee, nor does it support its use. In 2017, with support previously from Wolf, Romero, and Blake, a law was passed for Thurston County to extend an ordinance from 9 to 25 years. That's exclusive to Thurston County. So I ask you, is this constitutional, equal protection of the law, or just color of law? Color law is my vote. With fees and taxes on the rise, this affects families and affordable housing. In the city of Olympia, for example, with no health department or separate home consortium fund, the city of Olympia has burdened the taxpayers of their city the sum of $1,700 per person in their tiny homeless camp, okay? That doesn't include startup costs, okay? What's funny about this is it's the same site located for the same it's the same property located for the new courthouse. Guess they're going to have to move. Now you want to burden us with the taxpayers with a 39.5% increase to their property tax, whether a building is built or not. Are you now maintaining the one that you have with the costs you have? You seem to complain about it, so nothing, I guess, gets done. Diversion of funds comes to mind. The cost will be added to the renters of those office buildings, those renters of apartments and homes. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Glen Morgan, followed by Tony Wilson.
Thank you, Commissioners. It's good to be here. I haven't been here in a little while. My name is Glen Morgan. I live between Tenino and Rochester, and I'm here to speak strongly in opposition to the proposed new courthouse proposal. The other question, though, that you did have on tonight's hearing was when on the ballot, if it is accepted, it would be placed, and I would just like to point out that I think if, against my wishes, that this was going to be voted on, at least put it on the November 5th ballot so the largest number of voters would have the ability to participate in the vote, and rather than make it in an off, special election cycle. Now, the history of Thurston County and buildings is not particularly good. The words incompetent, wasteful, and embarrassing are oftentimes used when I talk to citizens around the community, and this history goes back decades. We're actually standing in a building that was sold to the taxpayers in 1978 as sustainable, as to be lasting much longer than the 30 years that we're claiming that it had right now, and to be expandable, infinitely expandable to lots of other resources, the same promises that are being made with the new facility. And yet now we are told that because of incompetent maintenance and a failure to actually do effective maintenance on the existing building, that because we're not fixing the roof and because we're not repairing it, that therefore it justifies going out and spending hundreds of millions of dollars to build a new one. Now, there's definitely problems with the current courthouse for sure. I've been a frequent flyer, coming here more often than I would like over the last couple of years, and definitely we know that there's a problem with parking, and there are some other issues that could be resolved here. But I think that those issues were glossed over. The opportunity to actually look at these buildings and do a significant maintenance, including improving the parking here, can be done for substantially lower costs. And I believe in some of the work sessions that, although it was glossed over and passed over, we were really looking at a $20 million to $25 million cost to still use the existing facilities and not move it to the Plum Street location. And I think that it's important to look at this is that the promises made historically in this county and elsewhere, unfortunately, by politicians today as to what they're going to get out of these new empire building sort of operations are frequently long forgotten by the time those promises fall apart. The elected officials are no longer there, but the taxpayers still must continue to bear the burden of whatever those decisions are. And I believe that there'd be a much more cost-effective opportunity, particularly in light of the fact that the jail's no longer here. Some of the original safety concerns that had been brought up by some of the judges and some of the other issues in the past mostly have been addressed, at least to the degree that they existed before, and that there are opportunities to use the existing facility and spaces that we already have without burdening my kids and my grandkids with another promise that's probably not any more true than the one was when they built this building. So just in closing, please, I oppose this, but also if we are going to have to vote on it, please put it on the November 5th ballot. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Tony Wilson, followed by Don Law.
Thank you. My name's Tony Wilson. I live south of Tumwater in unincorporated Thurston County. I had an opportunity to attend a coffee with Ty Menser, where he spoke to a number of citizens who came or appeared that day about two different plans. Now, I want to preface this by saying that if in fact the funding for this looks like what I heard described a few minutes ago, I'd virtually guarantee you the voters in this county won't vote for it. If it's a slush funds kind of arrangement, they won't vote for it. If it's actually aimed at this, I think this does need to be replaced. I think this is no longer fitting for the purpose that it was designed, and it's worn out. Of the two plans that you have been considering, there's an A and a B, and I didn't print them because I assume you're very familiar with how they lay out. I like B because it's expandable. I think there are some improvements that could be made architecturally to it. I think part of that is that the city of Olympia has to be in a negotiable position because the footprint is the footprint, but the airspace above the footprint is available. I lived in Seattle when the Smith Tower was the tallest thing there. I'm not sure where it is in the skyline now because cities changed. Cities changed. This one's going to change, and it's going to change dramatically over the next 40 or 50 years. I think building a 6-story building versus an 8-story building is a waste of airspace. I think having a lobby that's 2 stories tall is also a waste. I think surface parking will eventually convert to a parking garage because that's where cities operate. Whether it's a hospital, a government building, or whatever, that's the way it's done. I would encourage you to address that with the people in whatever you do before you put this on a ballot. And like Glen Morgan said, November's the time to do it, not any sooner than that, to make sure we all have an opportunity to weigh in, and the cost is less to the county if we do it that way. I'm kind of familiar with how election costs are allocated. That's probably all the comments I have about it. I'm appreciative of how much work has been put into this by numbers of people, but I don't think the design part of it's quite done yet, personally. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Don Law, followed by, I'm gonna try to get it right. Chuck Zerzewski, or Zerzewski?
Pretty good.
I got it. Okay, good. Thank you, sir.
I'm a retired lawyer, and I want to note that this will be the shortest presentation of the day, of the night. I live on East Bay Drive, and my one point I'd like to get across is don't miss that opportunity that you have now in terms of that site. That site is perfect as far as I'm concerned. The access coming on from the freeway, it's the one. If you don't, I think you'd be very sad 10 years from now that you lost it. That's my only point. Thanks.
Wow, thank you, Don. It was short. All right, Chuck, followed by Jonathan Sprowski.
I'm Charles Strzewski. I am in private practice. I've been in downtown Olympia for 30 years. Before that, I was a deputy prosecutor. I was a deputy prosecutor when you were a deputy and then the sheriff. I advised county agencies. I have had cases with Mr. Benser. I don't think I've ever met you. I live in unincorporated Thurston County, but as a retirement plan, I put money down in a condo in downtown Olympia, so I plan to move. I'm going to downsize. I was in this building representing agencies, representing people when it was new, and it was spacious, and it was safe. And I've got the word lax written down here. You could walk into a judge's chambers. You could walk anywhere. We don't live in that world anymore. I now represent individuals. I do a family law practice, so I'm mostly in one of the satellite things that have been put, because we can't all be here. We can't have all our people here. We've got prosecutors far away. We've got staff far away. We can't park here. We can't do so much of what we do. The population has exploded. This is a hard decision. You are the people to make this hard decision. It is not a kick the can. Well, it is a kick the can kind of thing because you could, but don't. This is the time. You've got people, you've got some enthusiasm, you've got the wherewithal to do this, and I urge you to do it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Jonathan Sprowski, followed by Chris Powell.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. The two prior attorneys who spoke set the bar for a low time, so I'll try and meet their standard. I live in unincorporated Thurston County in Rainier, and actually Commissioner Hutchings' district. But I do have a law firm practice downtown in Olympia. If I could only say one word about this project and why it should move forward, it'd be liability. If I could say two words, it's risk as well. Currently, the courthouse is unsafe. Your own commission has multiple studies showing how unsafe that courthouse is. Every time that elevator door opens on the other side of the judge's chambers, they're not sure if it's going to be a judge, an in-custody defendant, or somebody else. That's a huge problem. Every other courthouse in the Western Washington has more security than this. We are fortunate that we have not had more incidents. We are fortunate that this board has not faced more lawsuits due to the complete lack of security when in-custody defendants are being brought up to the courtroom. I know some of the other members might speak to the actual damages and mistrials that have occurred and the extra costs that is associated for the county, but truly, this commission is very lucky to not have had several incidents where a juror, a judge, or more courtroom deputies were attacked. One of those lawsuits makes this project infinitely more expensive. This county has faced enough lawsuits over its time. It can't stomach another one. I don't think your insurance company can stomach another one either. So please, move forward with this project as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Chris Powell, followed by Jay Goldstein.
Good evening, folks. My first question would be, why has this building not been maintained? And how do we know that the next one's going to be maintained? I'm not very trusting of the county. It just seems like we always get let down, and I don't understand why we can't maintain the perfect facility that we built 40 years ago. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Jay Goldstein, followed by Brett Buckley.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Jay Goldstein. I'm a lawyer in Olympia. My office is downtown. I live in unincorporated Thurston County near Evergreen State College. I urge you to put this matter on the ballot either in August or February and call your attention to the unsafe nature and the inadequate facilities here. They used to be adequate and safe. They're no longer. The courthouse has failed. The state's security compliance regulations need to be in compliance, and we can't do that with the current building. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Brett Buckley, followed by Trevor Zandell.
Chair Hutchings, Commissioner Edwards, and Menser, Brett Buckley, Thurston County District Court. I want to echo what Treasurer Gadman said earlier today, that is, our delay in addressing this need only serves to drive up the cost. We've heard plenty of testimony today which really reflects the inevitability of the need that we face here today. Something has to be done, and our failure to act will only drive up the cost, and delay in acting will continue to drive up the cost. Time is money, as Jeff pointed out, and I think we want to keep that in mind as we go forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Judge. Trevor, followed by Kathy Barros-Freed.
Good evening, Commissioners. Trevor Zandell. I live in the city of Tumwater in the northwest section of town. I'd like to urge this commission to move forward with the ballot proposal and put that ballot proposal to the voters, either at the August 6th primary election, 2019, or the February 2020 election, special election. First of all, the need for this has been talked about quite a bit, and I know that's not the issue tonight, but my brief point on that is that we need a new courthouse, and it will only get more expensive. Moving forward with this proposal is the least expensive alternative for this county. Otherwise, we're going to be sinking our money into maintaining this failing building, and we're eventually going to build a new courthouse when the price tag is $400 million, $500 million in 10, 20, or 30 years. So this is the cheapest option to solve this problem. Now, put it to the voters now, because if we don't put it to the voters now, Commissioners, all of our work on this issue will be wasted. If we wait until the next general election cycle in 2020, when 2 of the 3 of you will be on the ballot, when there will be a presidential election, a gubernatorial election, it will not move forward then because of political reasons. Then we're kicking the can to 2021 and so on and so forth. Now is the time. We don't feel the November 4th ballot is the best one because it doesn't give this the best chance of success, to be candid. And to the point that the most voters will vote, when you register to vote in this county, you get a ballot every single time there's an election in the mail. it could not be easier for you to vote. You simply have to check the box and put it back in the ballot collection receptacle. So we urge you to move forward either in August or February. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Kathy, and then followed by Lee. I'm not even going to try to pronounce the last name, Lee. Lee knows who you are? Okay, we'll figure it out.
My name is Kathy Barrows-Freed. I currently live in the city, but I've also lived in the county for a number of years. I'm coming before you as a citizen, one who's been a frequent flyer at the courthouse, not because of any problems on my side, but I am a mediator at small claims court. And in doing so, we are mediating standing in front of the restrooms, using the bench by the vending machine, in the hallway on the way to the office. Space is terrible, it's crowded. There are lots of issues around confidentiality and privacy as we try to do our work as mediators. So that's my personal access to it. As a citizen, I prefer the Plum Street site. I think that's a perfect place. It's an opportunity to make a real statement about coming into Olympia and where government is and having that visible. Easy access. I like the efficiencies of the consolidation of the disparate functions. I like the city-county partnerships. I've been involved in other capital campaigns where there was extra space in the beginning that was then rented out, and that was very cost-effective to lease out that space for the next year or two or three until it was needed for the expected growth. So I invite you to put it on the ballot. I encourage August. Make a statement about having a handsome building that's efficient and meeting the need, and I invite the county commissioners to be decisive and leave a legacy about doing the right thing and doing something wonderful for the community and efficient for the court services. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Lee. Oh, there we go, Lee.
Lisa.
Thank you for having this testimony tonight. My name is Lee Rimmer, and I come tonight to say that I believe also that it should go on the ballot in November. I agree with many of the commenters here tonight that the ballot measure will fail. I have made it a point, having lived here in this area for the last 30 years, to ask people, my neighbors, would they vote for a new courthouse? Most of them say no. After the current Hearst decision here in the state of Washington, the Republicans put the price of Hearst on the backs of homeowners. They put the price of Hearst decision to support Washington State public schools on the back of property owners, and that goes to renters, and that goes through society. The price of housing is getting very, very expensive. So everyone says to me, no, they will not vote for a ballot measure. They can't afford it because of the Hearst decision, because of rising taxes. So my concern is that, yes, the courts need help. The courts here in Thurston County have a security issue. I've been attending meetings here in this county courthouse for many years. I know in 2018, when Bud Blake was running this group, there were certain options, county-owned buildings in certain parts of the county, and I remember discussions up here at this podium, and somebody said, well, we could use this for the courts. We could design these public buildings, these owned by Thurston County, to have the courts move to this complex. And it was decided in 2018 with Bud Blake running the show, no, we're going to go forth with this other option. So anyway, they hired Ron Thomas to head this push for this ballot measure. Ron Thomas is a known architect here in Thurston County, a known architect downtown Olympia. Everybody that I spoke to does not have faith in Ron Thomas. I myself have attended many of his presentations on this courthouse issue. Ron Thomas is lining his own pocket with money from his own developments in downtown Olympia. Everyone that I have spoken to does not have faith in Ron Thomas, even though the county commissioners gave Ron Thomas another contract to continue the efforts to push this county courthouse option. So we have various issues in conflict here. We need a new court system that is fully recognized. We don't have enough money. and we don't have faith in the people who are pushing this in particularly. I know that $57 million in bonds, current bonding is extremely high. I believe that the parking issues here on the courthouse are paramount. I know people have to get into the courts. I know they have to go into the court room for their hearing. And I know in the past, Ron Thomas did the original assessment when we looked at getting a new courthouse. This was what, 3-4 years ago? And many of us read
Address
it.
the board, please, ma'am.
So
Thank you.
essentially, my concern is that assessment done by Ron Thomas was not publicized adequately, and public doesn't know about all the options that were shown in that original assessment. Thank you.
Thank you. And I didn't think I have to repeat this, but I will. Please, nothing that's inflammatory or defamatory. Please be respectful. Next is Pamela Hanson.
Thank you, County
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioners. I'm usually in Tumwater on Tuesdays, but I'm happy to be in this room. It's the very first time. I was at a Tumwater City Council work session where a presentation was made about this issue. I was hoping to be able to tape that here tonight. Unfortunately, I'm disappointed. In that presentation, which was very thorough, it talked about the different locations, and I would like to bring out the statement that there is more buildable area up here on Lake Ridge than there is at Plum Street. I would also like to bring out the statement that the bond has been stress tested by a committee. Committee, I don't know if that's the right term, but that's what I remember. And a question from one of the Tumwater City Council members at that work session, it was Councilmember Joan Cathy, was, is the taxpayers' budget going to be stress tested? Are they going to be able to survive a recession? The bond will, evidently, it's been studied. So, the other issue, which most people don't think about in the right way, is security. I've been a security officer in 2 states. I have been a security officer at the Olympia courthouse more than a decade ago as a relief officer running the metal detector. It was quiet then. It was when the Olympia Police Department was writing jaywalking tickets in downtown Olympia instead of hearing about a security officer being stabbed by a needle or a security officer having their ear bitten. Okay? It's dangerous down there now. It wasn't 10 years ago. When I listened to the mayor of Olympia, I heard a sales pitch. With all due respect, she runs in a different crowd than I do. I run in the low income, I got to make a living somehow and get off of disability. Okay? I'm running low on time, but that Plum Street location is a prime location for buses, for protesters, for the media to show up and catch pictures of those protesters. It's going to be an attraction just like the City of Olympia City Hall. It's the wrong place for the county to go. And it most likely will increase the costs to the City of Tumwater citizens because we have to use that facility. I don't want that. It's dangerous down there. And from my perspective, I wouldn't be a security officer there. Now, I would like to thank you, Mr. Buckley, Judge Buckley. I read his article, his commentary. I disagree with it. Maintenance needs to be maintained. So I disagreed with the judge on Tuesday. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. That exhausted the sign-up list. However, I'm opening it up to the gallery. If anybody would like to address the commission in this public hearing, you're welcome to come forward. Anyone? Yes, ma'am.
Hello, Commissioners. Michelle Hawkins. I live in unincorporated Thurston County. I think it was a little over a year ago, I was at an Olympia City Council meeting, and they were talking about the potential for sea level rise in downtown Olympia, how it would be impacted. And it was quite a stunned response from the council members. So I'm just wondering if anybody in your committee has looked into that. They were talking about building a dike across Bud Bay. They were talking about relocating downtown businesses, raising roads, raising entries to buildings as the water rose. So there's been significant studies done on that, and I'm just wondering if that has been looked into in regards to this building. I'm opposed to an increase in my land taxes to cover the cost of this building. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Again, soliciting anybody that would like to speak to the issue. Please come on up. Feel free to come up. Going, gone. And so, what is the pleasure of the board at this point?
I would move to close this public hearing.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to close the public hearing. Any discussion on that issue?
No.
No?
No.
Okay, public hearing is closed. Thank you, folks. Thank you very much.